Hey Roosters, and welcome back to another video. Simply put, in today's video we're going to be restarting this series. We're going to be bringing it back to life. We're going to pick up where we left off in a sense, but in another sense sort of just start from the beginning. Essentially start from scratch. Everything that exists for the game is completely changed now. I know I've been gone for a long time, over a year at this point. So I understand that you may assume that I just forgot about this and never wanted to come back to it. But the fact of the matter is I did want to come back to it. But I sort of got in my own way a lot. Not in the sense of, well, I'm going to get to it but just never do. But every time I come up with an idea that I really, really like, I decide that I have to add 2,000 more things on top of it, completely change the idea, and have to essentially start designing a new game from the very beginning. So you know what? I'm going to do what I should have done a year ago, and that is take you guys along the journey of trying to design the game, which was the original purpose of this entire series. I just got caught up in the idea that I was going to create a game off screen and just share my findings with you guys. Instead of a dev log, I was sort of doing a dev report, essentially, and I didn't want to have nothing to report. But that's part of the design process, and I should have been okay with that, and I wasn't. But here we are now. We're going to go through. I'm going to give you guys my ideas. In the next video, in this video, we're gonna try to solidify them in the next video, and we're gonna move forward from there. We're tearing everything down to its very fundamental concepts and ideas. So what does that mean? When I created this series and when I started creating this card game, there was 3 rules or 3 concepts that I wanted to be in this game. And I feel as long as I meet those 3 rules, I've always felt that this game was viable to move forward with. Oftentimes, I would create 2 out of the 3 easily and end up finding myself falling short of the 3rd, or meeting the 3rd requirement but adding a new mechanic into the game for no reason that would topple one of the other requirements or one of the other mechanics and leaving me back at square one. So, what are the 3 that I'm talking about? The first was a stamina mechanic, and in real life, people don't just have resources that they spend on fighting. It works on a stamina based thing. The more energy you exert, generally the greater outcome, but it leaves you more tired. And a lot of card games don't represent this concept well enough, in my opinion. And those that do it. I'm not saying it doesn't exist out there, but I wanted it just to be a feature in my card game because I think it's a really cool concept. Idea number 2 was that I wanted it to have a balancing mechanic. The idea that there's 2 separate ways you can play the game, but as a player, it is more pertinent to try to do both very well than doing one very well. And most card games, zeroing in on a single concept is easier than trying to do multiple. But in my card game, I want it to be the fact that you want to try to do multiple, even though it has its drawbacks, because ultimately the benefits outweigh the negatives. And the third mechanic or concept that I wanted to be in this card game that is actually really easy to implement was going to be that it was a dueling card game. And really what I mean by that is really loose. Some people don't even call it that. Maybe they call them hero battlers or something. But the idea is that you pick a character and you build a deck full of things that the character uses. You play as the character you chose, and you try to defeat your opponent's character. Apart from other games where you have abstract characters that exist, stuff like Magic the Gathering doesn't really count. You don't pick a character unless you're talking about Commander. You're sort of an abstract player taking the role of the controller of the game. In this concept, you're controlling a character who's in a fight, and that's what I wanted to implement. Okay, so as of now, how am I going about rule number 1, the stamina mechanic? Well, simply put, I'm going to have a deck of cards. Obviously, it's a card game. And in this deck game, every round, every turn, you're allotted a certain amount of those cards as a stamina pile, a stamina resource. And using this pile of resources wisely is really important because although you're allotted a certain amount, when you run out, you have a finite amount throughout the game. You're just sort of drip fed your finite amount. Because a lot of times in a lot of my playtests, when you give the player access to the entire resources from turn 1, what they end up doing is that they blow it all in really early and attempt to kill your opponent really quickly. Because in reality, most players won't want to play the long game. that want to play a quicker game, and that's fine, but I realize that to keep the game slow, I don't want players to go turn 2 and just spend a bunch of resources and the rest of the game is sort of dead and slow until it ends. I kind of want it to go on for a decent amount of time, but I do want the players, to have a choice about how much they spend. They shouldn't feel like they need to spend all of it or none of it or whatever, right? So I decided to do a drip feed mechanic where you're allotted a certain amount of resources every game, but the resources you're allotted are in a finite amount. Eventually, you are going to run out, and you have to keep that in mind. Okay, so on to the second mechanic, the balancing mechanic. The way it works right now in the current iteration of the card game is there are 2 power-ups. One power-up gives you more resources, more stamina for the cost of cards in your hand. You lose options, you get more power. Usually, decks that would use this use it to make big, explosive plays. The other one gives you more cards in your hand, but at the cost of your stamina, your life. So, what does it mean? It generally means that you have, what it generally means is that they essentially counteract each other. So if you have an equal amount of both of these power-ups, nothing essentially happens to you. But if you have more of one or more of the other, you gain a benefit, but with a drawback, depending on which one you allowed yourself to choose. It's not impossible to choose just one, but if you want the benefits of both, you can get the benefits of both in a sense. It depends on how you build your deck. And I like the way it is right now because it's not too hard, it's not too demanding of the players. It's not something you always have to worry about when building decks or playing the game. But it's definitely noticeable and it's definitely there. You get to make the conscious choice. Do I want more health with less cards, or more cards less, or more resources less health, more resources less cards, or more cards less resources? And that's the way it is right now, and I'm pretty happy with it. I'm sure it's going to move or change around a little bit. I don't want them to be the exact opposite, but the way it is now, them being just literally the counter opposites of each other, works really well, and I'm fine leaving it that way. Now, the third mechanic is really easy to implement into any card game. You just make it that way. It's not really that complicated. You make it so that there are characters you choose from and attacks and stuff in your deck. But I'm going to take this moment to explain a little bit more about the battle mechanic that's currently implemented in the game. The way it is now is that you have a deck full of attacks and what are called actions they can use to attack or defend. But you also have sprites, which are like creatures, and you play them onto the field, and they also have the ability to essentially attack and defend for you. So it's a mixture between a Pokemon-type battler, a monster battler, as well as a maybe Flesh and Blood or Universes type of game. And I really like the way it is right now, because in your deck you can choose to focus more on the creature side of things, or you can choose to focus more on the attacks from hand side of things. And there's different ways you can play it and to sort of benefit that side of play, that your style of play you're going for. Okay guys, so that is all there's going to be in today's video. I know it's really short, really brief. Really, this is just an announcement that the series is coming back. Next episode, we're going to do a lot more of the nitty-gritty. Right now, I'm just saying, hey, for anybody who really was invested, I know there's a lot of people, shout out to you all who commented and expected the return for, if you were waiting or even expecting it at some point, really a year now. But we're coming back. We're going to move forward. Hopefully I can do weekly updates, even if it's, well, today I made a new card. Today I introduced a new mechanic to the game. Today I tweaked one stat on one simple card, and that's all I did. That is going to be enough, because that is what the series is about. It's about keeping you guys updated, and that's the way I want to keep it. Even if it sort of gets to the point where I'm not really advancing much, at least you guys know how much I'm advancing, so you guys can keep giving me your ideas, you guys can keep getting excited, and keep yourself involved within the process. Hope you guys enjoyed that for today's video. Typically, I'm recording this before the fact, but in editing, I'm sure on the screen you guys will be seeing the creation of maybe like a card. Nothing here is really final. It's just a lot of concept, a lot of, in that sense, how maybe I want the card layout to look, or how I want maybe the card art to look, or something like that. Card text, font, all that stuff obviously is up for change. We're back to the early stages of development. Essentially, we're back from ground zero where we were 1 year ago. But I hope you guys come back for the next video. I hope you guys are really excited for this. I am. I know that I didn't seem like I really was eager to get back to this, but I was, and I was looking forward to it for a long time. So I'm glad we're finally there. And I hope to see you guys along for the journey and the ride. Well, that's going to be all for now, but if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you guys go ahead and watch some of our other videos that we've made on this channel. Also, give this video a like if you thoroughly enjoyed it. And of course, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss any of our future content. And I hope to see you guys back at the roost.